Welcome to Week 9 by Vanessa Bester, Dimar Brown, Jennifer Love, and Erin McCubbin. My name is Jennifer Love. Our group read two books, The Innovative University and Higher Education, How Colleges Are Wasting Our Money and Failing Our Kids, and What We Can Do About It. This presentation will cover both books, how both books overlap, and how they relate to our course EDU 7217, Educational Systems. Vanessa, Dimar, Jennifer, and Erin have three learning objectives for our colleagues in class this week. Objective 1. Analyze the current U.S. model of higher education and its ability to meet the needs of students, faculty, and society, who are the stakeholders in higher education. Learning objective number 2. Evaluate the barriers that universities, students, and faculty encounter with respect to the Higher Education Act and other funding policies. And learning objective number 3. Create and or imagine a higher education environment that combines newer, disruptive models of innovation and change to meet the needs of stakeholders. This is our Dream Your University activity. Clayton Christensen is a professor at Harvard Business School. He is also well known for many books on disruptive innovation, where he has discussed how small companies have surpassed large companies due to their agile, innovative, and disruptive innovations. Henry J. Eyring is the son of Henry B. Eyring. Henry B. Eyring was a former president at BYU, Idaho. Henry J. has an MBA from BYU, Idaho. Both of these authors address the core question that how does this book help us discern the current assumptions and the issues and the challenges of our current higher education system? And they address this bigger is better mentality and prove that most schools, most universities are not sustainable in trying to achieve what Harvard has achieved in its model of education. And this has to do with the root DNA of each institution. And so the takeaway here is that challenges of our current educational system include government policy and how higher ed is structured and how our society expects this American bigger is better philosophy in higher education, and how unless certain institutions reinvent themselves and become much more agile and much more responsive to student needs, that these institutions will not flourish. So we present this book and the other higher education book to address how higher education could be changed, and if so, how for the better. And we propose that change can be achieved from two different directions. One from within the university itself, and one at the federal and state policy level. So at the university level, change should focus on more innovative, more reasonable goals, where educational entrepreneurship may help innovate universities in terms of online learning and better scholarship and learning and teaching. The other perspective that we propose that higher education could be changed is based on policy, and it has to do with amending the Higher Education Act to better fit America's current higher educational needs and wants. So this also has to do with the new rating systems and our national expectations of higher education, where changes in funding priorities from research to more educational focus could actually help a lot more universities. Still keep some university at high level, but really reinvent higher education for the benefit of all of our students. So higher education was recently shook up, or almost 10 years ago, with the controversial Spellings Commission, and this book, Innovative University, refers to it. And Margaret Spellings was the U.S. Secretary of Education under President George W. Bush. And the Spellings Commission, which was a committee of individuals at the federal level, wrote a report claiming that college enrollment was declining, costs for a degree were increasing, and graduates were unprepared for the workplace. And so, as you would imagine, this really shook up the higher education world. And in this book, Innovative University, Christensen and Eyring refer to education entrepreneurship. They address, or they introduce, this concept that entrepreneurs, like people in business that are outside the education sector, could bring their knowledge, skills, and abilities into the education sector, and that there are many, many education entrepreneurs within the education system itself that have knowledge, skills, and abilities that really could innovate our current higher education system. So the idea that disruptive innovation would be able to create and innovate education, the bigger and better approach is not the answer for all institutions. In disruptive innovation focuses on a product that is more affordable, it is more accessible to more students, especially adult learners that have been transforming higher ed, and a product that is easier to use, for example, online courses. This illustration shows the difference between sustaining innovators like Harvard University and disruptive innovators like BYU Idaho. Schools like Harvard, which are the Ivy League schools, they appeal to those most demanding customers. And so, performance is being driven up over time, just the same way that it is for the least demanding customers, but there's sort of a saturation point. So they keep going up and up and up. That would be someone like Harvard. Now, the BYU Idaho disruptive innovators are tackling the least demanding customers, still providing an excellent education, staying close to their roots, appealing to a broader base of consumers that are with more accessible and more user-friendly products. And the dotted line, which we added to this graphic, refers to the fact that universities that are in this category have started to shift towards being more disruptive innovators in order to stay feasible and viable as higher education institutions. So the answer is that these disruptive innovators are turning their attention towards educational entrepreneurship. These two columns of information compare and contrast two very different universities. Harvard, which was founded in 1636, was established in the United States as the gold standard by which most universities emulate themselves. Brigham Young University in Idaho, by contrast, is an example of a disruptive innovator. It was founded in 1888 by Thomas Ricks, and it was first a 2-year institution. Now, as Harvard has driven the model of higher education in the United States, the comprehensive and elective curriculum was introduced by Charles Eliot, who was a president of Harvard, and put graduate schools atop the undergraduate colleges, which were the first model of higher ed, the undergraduate schools first. Added this tenure system, the traditional tenure system that we understand today, and also introduced the fact that faculty can govern themselves, give students some more freedoms, let them explore their majors and a variety of other topics, instituted college entrance examinations and standards, and which of course then encourages and stimulates this academic race to the top. Now, on the other hand, Brigham Young, as a disruptive innovator, has always focused on undergraduates. They have expanded their enrollment in order to stay and remain financially viable. They moved to a year-round academic calendar as opposed to only fall and spring in order to take advantage of their facility, their campus. And their faculty merit is centered around the teaching and learning based on their scholarship, and not necessarily on the research that they do. So this slide compares that even though Harvard is a research-driven institution where faculty focus on their own studies and research more so than their own teaching, Brigham Young, on the other hand, does focus on undergraduates and teaching as well. And so things like entrepreneurship that have entered into the BYU Idaho system has really kept BYU Idaho relevant and allowed it to prosper. As part of Harvard's race to the top, it recruited the best professors worldwide at any cost. In its heyday, it changed the educational mindset, allowed professors to choose what they wanted to teach, allowed students to choose what they wanted to study as opposed to coming in and taking a very broad set of classes where our higher education first started. And Harvard also introduced the concept of a major, which will then align within the PhD system. So these are pictures here of Harvard and a classroom or an auditorium classroom inside Harvard University. So the higher education world was ripe for disruption, according to these authors, and this is where BYU took over. So this is a snapshot about BYU as a new kind of university. It has no traditional research mission, no traditional tenure system that is customarily based on scholarly publications. Faculty are involved with course development, and that's part of their performance evaluation system. As I mentioned before, BYU Idaho changed to a year-round semester system to keep its costs down and to take more advantage of its facilities. It also blends online and hybrid learning to address unique learning needs of all students. In fact, it has expanded its adult learning market, and it also serves more students through its satellite campuses, not only in Rexburg, Idaho itself, but satellite campuses like this one shown in Hawaii. So the next few slides are entitled Genetic Reengineering, and these are the culminating section of this book where Clayton Christensen and Eyring really drive their take-home message. And so in summary, in this book, Innovative University, there have been disappointing results. So diplomas do not cost, are not really worth as much compared to their relative cost. New students and potentially new students, especially the achievement gap that we've been talking about in our class, doors are closing to these new students. And because of this broken tenure system, students and faculty are both underserved in the sense that faculty have so much responsibility and so much pressure to publish that they're not doing a good job with teaching. And in relation to that, with some of our other curriculum materials offered this week, we do address, where does the non-tenure track faculty approach come in, and how does that help or hinder the university and the students themselves. So now the authors recommend that if universities want to remain competitive, they must focus on discovery. They have to keep working on new knowledge. That's the whole basis of higher education. That is not disputable. But they also have to remember and recall their own achievements and failures from the past and not make the same mistakes twice. And they also have to agree to commit to mentoring the rising generation of our students. So this book does not think that innovative universities have to completely shed themselves of the old model of education. In fact, universities have two unique assets that they really need to keep a hold of. One being their physical campus, and here's a picture of Harvard on top and BYU Idaho on the bottom. And in this day of higher education, parents want their children to take face-to-face courses with real professors. They want their students, they want their children to be accountable. They also know that their students grow up and that college is a life experience, living away from home. And of course, real estate, just the real estate value itself of a college campus is worth considerable amount of money. Now, with that, faculty that are PhD trained, they survive tenure, they're rigorous thinkers. So these authors do not think that the standard professor career should be transformed upside down. In fact, faculty are life-changing mentors for our students. So the bottom line is that a typical university must decrease the cost of its degree by increasing the percentage of students who graduate and decrease their time to graduation. In other words, don't leave any credits behind. The university must decrease its cost of its institutional resources, so not only its facilities, but its instruction, which faculty salaries are the biggest bulk of a university's budgets. Universities should operate year-round with more efficient classroom scheduling. And as we're familiar with the Northeastern model, as those of us that are in this class, Northeastern does this. And essentially, just like we're experiencing it right now, universities need to embrace online learning, use lower-cost adjunct faculty, but still maintain high-quality courses. And so the future movement in education, as written by these two authors in 2011, is that hybrid courses are the wave of the future that blend face-to-face and online learning. Flipped classrooms will necessarily be flipping the model where the learning takes place in the class with the instructor, but the student is more responsible for self-independent learning before class, online simulations and quizzes, and in-class discussions and activities. So that's the future movement. Universities must make careful choices about the students they serve. And as we know, with the Northeastern model, working adults are a huge market segment and also produce better profit margins. So in conclusion, for this book, Innovative University, there are several recommendations to higher education, which include mix face-to-face and online learning in order to increase capacity for students and revenue, increase attention to values, choose to be selectively different than your competition, as BYU Idaho has done, as Olin College of Engineering has done. That was a case study in this book. Focus on undergraduate students, especially provide need-based aid to address that achievement gap. Develop cross-disciplinary, some integrated curriculum that's modular, customizable majors. Let students choose what they want to study. Let them put together their own custom majors instead of it being so regimented for them. Hire faculty with the intent to train and retain them, minimize rank and salary distinctions, and get rid of that up or out tenure system altogether. Now, here's where the policy piece comes in for this book. Government regulators are demanding accountability. So focus on what the university produces in terms of graduates, their salaries, time to find a job, rather than what the university does in terms of its research or its spending, or what it consumes, the types of students that enter the university. So this new proposed system, the Department of Education under Barack Obama has just released this new college rating system, which we think is quite timely considering that we just read this book. So all in all, for innovative universities to reinvent themselves, universities must shift the emphasis that things that matter to scholars and ranking agencies to things that really matter to students and their families. This is the only way that higher education is going to transform itself and remain viable for years to come.
Once revered as places where students go to learn from well-read, published, and expert professors, American colleges and universities have shifted emphasis from its basic foundations of being institutions focused on the provision of advanced teaching and learning to places of luxurious amenities more focused on financial growth and pure perceived popularity with lessened academic structures, which, according to the authors in the book Higher Education, How Colleges Are Wasting Money and Failing Our Kids, and What We Can Do About It by Andrew Hacker and Claudia Dreyfus, as places that are really missing the mark and no longer being considered higher education. Of the many things cited in the books, four themes were revealed that contributes to the corruption of the current state of higher education. Those things are teacher troubles, student expectations, top-heavy management, hunger for funds and flashy programs. Before we explore these items in detail, let's explore perhaps the most noticeable shift highlighted by the authors in classroom instruction. According to the authors, pedagogical practices at colleges and universities have shifted from liberal arts-driven education, which were focused on enhancing the cognitive and analysis capabilities of students, to more vocational career-focused instruction. Most of what colleges and universities offer now can be put into the training category. Think in terms of engineering, nursing, and sports management. Those institutions have departed from their original goal of educating students to a higher degree. Undergraduate students are mature, yet not fully formed, which makes college the ideal time to discover themselves and wrestle with the questions of the universe. That level of self-education is paramount for meaningful contributions to society. Now let's focus our attention on the aforementioned categories contributing to the corruption of higher education. Let's examine teacher troubles. In order to get tenure, teachers must intensively research and, in burgeoning cases, publish. Research requires sabbaticals. Even more, teachers are told that to reach tenure, they must be involved in all aspects of the college. So many find themselves on committees, after committee that further take time away from engaging with students. That means that teachers on the tenure track are in the classroom less and are often replaced by graduate assistants or adjunct professors. Yet, while on sabbatical or not in the classroom, teachers are still on the school payroll. Adjunct professors are brought in to take the teaching load off teachers on sabbatical or to cover all the courses no tenured teacher wants to teach. These professors also have little teaching experience and find themselves even less supported. Additionally, they're paid a fraction of the hourly wages of a full time teacher and enjoy none of the benefits. This leads to overwork and frenzied adjunct professors. Well, what can be done? Once thought to be a last ditch resort, tech teaching may be the answer. Online learning has been optimized over the recent years, a better student engagement experience. Instead of under resourced adjunct professors, additional techno teaching options would allow for tenure track professors to still remain actively engaged in student learning while also being able to conduct their research and sit on those committees. The often unexplained rising costs of higher education have more and more students turning to student loans for financial aid. Colleges and universities have been known to only engage certain student groups, for example, first generation, minority, and student athletes. Engaging students comes with cost. Expanded administrative roles and updating facilities to be more luxurious are just two examples. College athletics comes with an even higher cost. Football actually adds to the debt of most colleges and universities. Although students are taking out loans and are seemingly being engaged by colleges and universities, these do not add to the purpose of education. Well, what can be done? Colleges and universities can begin by trimming the fat. Tenured, athletic programs, and top heavy management contribute to the cost. These things being managed could actually decrease the cost. Colleges and universities can also focus on undergraduate students and provide them with better experiences, recruit more students to bring down the cost for those that are currently enrolled. Top heavy management. One thing that can be done to rid colleges and universities of corruption is to demand that the Golden Dozen deliver. The Golden Dozen refers to the ultra desired list of colleges and universities sought by parents of college bound students. Due to their ubiquitous perceptions of being prestige, all of the Ivy League schools are part of this Golden Dozen. The Golden Dozen gives unacknowledged graduate and professional school admissions preference to alums of other Golden institutions. The Golden Dozens are not living up to their missions. For example, Princeton has a mission to educate national leaders. However, no one in their 1973 freshman class reportedly worked the job at the national level. Another factor contributing to the corruption of higher education institutions is their hunger for funds and flashy programs. Many colleges have felt the need to expand their empires to include expensive research institutions and medical centers in order to attract research grants. The largest percentage of resources ought to go towards the undergraduate students if the primary goal is to educate students. Even for colleges with expansive endowments, alumni are still solicited to donate to a general scholarship type fund, which are often a small percentage of the total student cost to attend. Many students still find themselves taking out loans to finance their education, except they are really financed at medical school or a new research institution. What can be done? The higher education experience was first and foremost created for undergraduate students, but focusing attention here, the need for constant fundraising would highly diminish. Colleges that change lives. The authors highlighted several colleges and universities around the country that are really putting students at the center of their missions. Those schools have several attributes, and they are low student to faculty ratios, classes are actually being taught by professors and not TAs, dedicated and passionate faculty who actually teach, advise, and mentor students, a commitment to undergraduate education that focuses on the liberal arts and sciences, opportunities for undergraduate research, residential living and learning environments which emphasize the benefits of community, personal growth, participation, and involvement. Smaller classroom enrollments, out of classroom learning opportunities, holistic admission policies including test optional applications, alumni networks that help graduates with professional and career development opportunities as well as foster lifelong friendships, an ideal living and learning environment where students can meet and exceed their own expectations for personal intellectual growth. So, what has this book taught us? This book has taught us that the current state of higher education has shifted its focus from being student centered to more about the institution. Also, it has taught us that colleges care more about professor publications, research, publicity, and rankings than they do about student success, engagement, and development. And finally, for real changes to take place, these systems need to realign and be more student centered. A supporting stance speaking in more detail about this can be found at the link below. Alright, so after reviewing two books, let's talk about the comparisons between the two. The books, The Innovative University, as well as Higher Education. Both books emphasized focusing higher education goals on educating students. Parents and students expect that learning will occur in post-secondary settings by full-time faculty, and that post-secondary institutions should stay true to their roots while being innovative and realistic. They also emphasize the importance of traditional college experiences and the need to identify and adapt to the learning needs of students, which really calls for more face-to-face learning. They also emphasize that universities and colleges should do away with unnecessary costs and distractions. Those things include tenure systems, student amenities, new buildings, and faculty research and publications. Finally, the Higher Education Act and state funding policies impact current educational needs in America. Discussion board, Dream Your University. This week's supporting materials includes two videos and one article that tie the two books, Innovative University and Higher Education, together. The additional material folder includes the raw, anonymous results of a survey given to high school juniors and seniors from Atlanta, Georgia, exploring their ideal college and what they feel they are owed from the colleges and universities they choose to attend. For this week, answer the following questions using the above resources. 1. Describe your own concept for a higher education experience, considering the student, faculty, administrative, and policy perspective. 2. How does your ideal environment differ from that of a 16 or 17-year-old's? What themes, trends emerged in the raw student feedback data? 3. How has the goal of undergraduate higher education changed over the years? How has this influenced the perception of undergraduate experiences to high school students? And finally, what policies, if any, need to be implemented to reshift the focus of undergraduate education? Thank you for your time, and we look forward to engaging with you.